Hello Reddit. I want to share my story. Here it goes. I 29F live in a small town where everyone knows everyone. There's a local corner store owned by Mr. Johnson 65M, who has been running it for decades. While the store has been a staple in the community, Mr. Johnson himself has always been openly racist, particularly towards people like me. I'm black, and his prejudiced comments and discriminatory behavior have made it clear that he doesn't respect or value customers who look like me. For years, I tried to ignore his comments and simply avoid the store, but it was hard since it's the only place nearby to get groceries and essentials without driving out of town. One day, after another humiliating encounter with Mr. Johnson, I reached my breaking point. I decided I had to do something about it. My plan began with small acts of defiance. I started stealing small items from the store, justifying it by telling myself that he didn't deserve my money. It felt empowering to take back something from a man who treated me so poorly. Over time, my theft escalated. I became more strategic, stealing higher value items and ensuring I was never caught. I knew the store's layout, the security camera's blind spots, and Mr. Johnson's schedule by heart. As I continued, I saved up the money I would have spent at Mr. Johnson's store and used it to start my own small business, a mobile grocery service. I bought a van and began purchasing products in bulk from wholesalers. I offered fresh produce, household essentials, and specialty items at fair prices. My business quickly gained traction, especially among those who also felt marginalized by Mr. Johnson's behavior. Meanwhile, Mr. Johnson's store began to suffer. He started running out of stock more frequently because, unbeknownst to him, I was redirecting some of his inventory to my business. His customer base dwindled as more people preferred my friendly, inclusive service. The irony was that I was selling the same products he struggled to keep on his shelves, but with better service and a smile. One day, Mr. Johnson reached out to me. He was desperate, and I could sense the tension in his voice. He needed supplies and had heard through the grapevine that I had a good stock. He offered to buy products from me at twice the price he paid his suppliers. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here was the man who looked down on me, now asking for my help. I decided to meet him in person to discuss the deal. When I arrived at his store, the sight of empty shelves and the worn-out look on Mr. Johnson's face filled me with a mix of satisfaction and pity. We sat down, and he began to explain his situation, trying to mask his desperation with pride. I listened patiently and then agreed to sell him the products he needed, but on my terms. For weeks, our business relationship continued. He bought products from me at inflated prices, and I used the profits to expand my mobile grocery service further. I hired a couple of employees, invested in better equipment, and even started offering delivery services. My business flourished, while Mr. Johnson's store barely survived. One afternoon, as I was making a delivery, I saw Mr. Johnson outside his store, looking more defeated than ever. I approached him, and we had a conversation that I'll never forget. He admitted that he had misjudged me and others in the community. He confessed that his prejudice had clouded his judgment and that he respected what I had built. It was a moment of unexpected vulnerability. I didn't expect an apology, but hearing him acknowledge his wrongs was a step towards healing for both of us. I offered to help him modernize his store and advised him on how to attract a more diverse customer base. It wasn't out of pity but rather a hope that our community could grow stronger together. For the first few weeks, everything seemed to be going well. My business continued to grow, and Mr. Johnson's store started to recover. I helped him implement new business strategies, improve his inventory system, and even redesign his store layout to be more welcoming. Despite my initial reservations, I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, he had genuinely changed. However, a few incidents started raising red flags. One day, I overheard Mr. Johnson speaking to one of his longtime customers. His tone and choice of words reminded me of his old self. He was polite when he saw me, but the moment he thought I was out of earshot, his true colors emerged. He made derogatory remarks about some of my customers and belittled my business success, attributing it to luck rather than hard work and innovation. I decided to keep an eye on him, suspecting that his apology might not have been sincere. Over the next few weeks, I gathered more evidence. I spoke with some of my customers who still frequented his store, and they shared similar experiences. They noticed that while Mr. Johnson's behavior towards them was superficially polite, it was clear he still harbored the same prejudices. One particularly disheartening conversation was with an elderly black woman who had shopped at Mr. Johnson's store for decades. She told me that Mr. Johnson had been particularly cold and dismissive to her after my business started booming. He had even made offhand comments suggesting that her patronage wasn't as valuable as that of his white customers. Hearing this broke my heart, and I knew I had to confront him again. I arranged another meeting with Mr. Johnson under the pretense of discussing further improvements to his store. As we sat down in his office, I laid out everything I had observed and heard. I told him that his apology seemed insincere and that his behavior hadn't truly changed. Mr. Johnson's demeanor shifted instantly. Gone was the apologetic, respectful man I had hoped he had become. Instead, he sneered and dismissed my concerns, saying, "You think you're so smart, don't you? Running your little business and playing the hero. But let's be clear, you wouldn't be where you are without me needing your help." I was taken aback by his blunt admission. It was clear that his so-called apology had been a manipulative tactic to use me for his benefit. He continued, "I knew you'd fall for it. You people always do, thinking you can change the world with your good intentions." His words stung, but they also fueled my resolve. I stood up and told him that our business relationship was over. I would no longer supply his store with products, and I would make sure the community knew the truth about his unchanged racist attitudes. He laughed and said, "Good luck with that. This town's been mine long before you got here, and it'll be mine long after you're gone." Leaving his office, I felt a mix of anger and determination. I reached out to my customers and the wider community, sharing my experiences and the true nature of Mr. Johnson's behavior. The response was overwhelming. Many people, especially those who had also felt marginalized, rallied behind me. With the support of the community, my business continued to thrive, expanding beyond our small town to neighboring areas. I invested in a storefront, creating a welcoming space for everyone, and hired a diverse team dedicated to inclusive service. My business became a symbol of resistance and progress, a place where everyone felt valued and respected. As for Mr. Johnson, his store struggled more than ever. Word spread about his true nature, and many of his remaining customers chose to support my business instead. His stubbornness and refusal to change ultimately led to his store's decline. Looking back, I realized that while Mr. Johnson's manipulation had caused me pain, it also strengthened my resolve. His false apology and subsequent betrayal highlighted the importance of true integrity and the power of community support. Thank you, Reddit, for your continued support and encouragement. Sharing my journey has been cathartic, and knowing that I'm not alone in facing these challenges gives me strength. I'm proud of what I've built and the positive change it's brought to our community. If you have any similar experiences or advice, I'd love to hear them. Together, we can continue to stand up against injustice and create a better future.